Welcome to the tech.mn podcast, a Made in Minnesota podcast featuring the stories of individuals that make up the tech capital of the North. And here's your host, Kevin McArdle.
Thank you very much, pre-recorded Jac. Everything's weird today. Jac is ill and won't be joining us on the podcast. I'm not in the studio. I'm in a dark office. And we got two guests, which is unusual. Just to acknowledge why this is all weird, this is the first pod we're recording during the stay-at-home order, during the COVID-19 pandemic. We pre-record, so the last several weeks have come out and sounded totally normal, even though nothing's normal. So we are lucky. So I'm carrying a little bit more freight than usual with Jac out, and that is relevant because we got the guys from Dispatch here. Ryan and Andrew, let's go one at a time. Andrew, could you start and give us just your full name and what do you do at Dispatch?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having us on, Kevin. I'm Andrew Leone. I'm the CEO and co-founder at Dispatch.
And Ryan, how about you?
Yeah, I'm the Chief Revenue Officer and co-founder with my partner, Andrew, there.
Well, I'm excited to have you all with us on the podcast because Dispatch seems to be one of the biggest emerging bright spots in the local tech scene recently, and I want to get into all that and your story of what feels like a meteoric rise from the outside looking in. I'm sure it's a little bit more complicated than that, but I want to start life before Dispatch. So maybe Andrew, could you give me a little bit of the history of Andrew and how your work life and life leading up to co-founding Dispatch with your partner Ryan?
Yeah, absolutely. So prior to Dispatch, I've been self-employed for probably 15 years, owning a number of brick and mortar businesses. Most recently, like leading up to Dispatch, I owned a wholesale distribution company in Minnesota and Wisconsin with two other partners, selling to the HVAC contractor. So the one that's fixing your furnace and air conditioner in your home. And that's actually kind of how it was kind of the catalyst for Dispatch, initially is we had a big problem with our customer base getting more and more pressure from homeowners to get jobs done quicker, faster. And then there was a huge problem in skilled labor shortage. I don't know how much you follow, the trades, but everyone stopped going to tech school. Everyone started going to universities. All the parents were pushing university. And so, over the years, there's a big labor gap in skilled trades. And so you saw a massive rising cost of skilled labor in that space. And so, my customers at the time were really trying to figure out how do I keep these employees busy, working all day, every day. And I can't have them run around town picking up parts when I'm, paying them $80,000 a year now. The rate kept going up. And so one of my business partners, Aaron, started piloting a job site delivery program for one of our key customers, and that customer 10x their volume with us just because we were able to get product to the job site when they needed it and where they needed it rather than running around town picking up product. And that was kind of initially how this started, and the problem was always to do that you had to build your own fleet internally or outsource to some type of courier. And couriers are fragmented. They're inconsistent depending on the area of the town you're in. Pricing's different. And then your in-house fleet, the answer is always another vehicle. Even you get 10 deliveries in and you have to buy another truck. And so Ryan and I, we're talking about this quite a bit. And Ryan, maybe it's a good segue just to tell Kevin how we met.
Yeah, Kevin, are you okay with that?
This is your show, guys. Let it roll. Yeah. So Ryan, what were you doing prior to Dispatch?
Yeah. So
I job in particular I want to hear about.
Wait, which one?
I see in your bio that you were a yo-yo professional.
That's one of those ones that you, at least in my experience, I'm like, do I leave that on there? Do I take that off? How is that?
You lead with that. That you lead with that. So I'm so dumb. I looked at it, I'm like, yo-yo professional. What does that even mean? Oh, you were a professional yo-yo guy or yo-yoist? What's the right term?
Really the community is pretty divided on that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yo-yo player, yo-yoist. I
didn't mean to open a scab on that one.
No, it's okay. In my early 20s, I actually, started in the cell phone business when that was like really exploding in the sort of late 90s and 2000s. And in the middle of that, I had an early midlife crisis where I think I had seen some Anthony Robbins or Tony Robbins type motivational deal about, going to accomplish something I hadn't before. And I immediately, on my break, walked up to the yo-yo store. I could think of two things that I just couldn't do that everybody else could do. And I was like, okay, today's the day. I'm going to make this problem go away. I was 20 years old. And as an adult,
Not being able to yo-yo was the problem?
I couldn't make it go down and come back up. I couldn't do it. And I can't.
So, quick sidebar. What was the other thing that you considered that you couldn't do that everybody else could?
I can't do that. I'm
okay.
Horribly
both
bad.
Super important for a professional in his or her 20s to be able to master those skills. So I could see why you wanted to close the gap.
So this is why, like, if there's any kind of talent, competition of any kind that involves hula hooping, you'll see me slowly back away and move to the back of the room. Now, if it's yo-yo related, I'm, step right up.
Yeah.
So I walk into this yo-yo store. I tell the kid that's there, hey, I'm going to buy a yo-yo that's too expensive for my ability. Here's the thing. Before I leave, you're going to need to teach me how to make this thing go down and come back up. And I did that. This is about when YouTube was like, early on. And I went home. The beauty of yo-yoing is that, you can compete against yourself. That's it. It's like you're learning to master trick after trick. So there I was, YouTubing how to learn all these tricks. And before you know it, I was at a yo-yo competition and somebody walked up to me and handed me a business card and said, my boss would love to talk to you. It sounds like straight out of a movie, but it eventually what wound up happening is I worked for one of the yo-yo manufacturers, and basically traveled around the country doing yo-yo. I probably did that in front of 250,000, maybe 500,000 people. And it was during during 9/11 and all that at that time. And that's what I was doing professionally. It paid me over 40 grand to go fly around and, be a professional athlete. So
it's amazing. The chuckle you hear is Andrew. Do you have a quarrel with him calling himself an athlete?
No, he's top tier. That's why we're partners.
Yes, that is a great story. And Jack and I like to keep a podcast bingo sheet, and we can now check off professional yo-yo athlete. I apologize for not giving you the appropriate credit. Yo-yoist undersells it. So after you're, typical, like, after 5-6 years of yo-yo, people are past their prime, I assume. And so, you wash out like all the other professional yo-yo athletes.
I left the game when I was still on.
Hang up your string. You're the Barry Sanders of...
I walk away.
I've heard other people say that. That's not just me.
Yeah, I walk away. Certainly people think, is there more he could have done? Will this affect his Hall of Fame status? I mean, I get it. But they don't know the relentless travel, the pain in my wrist, not just from the yo-yoing, but from the autograph signing. It was a difficult time. But
it's gotta be mentally grueling too.
Funny segue, but I went back into the wireless space and opened up over 100 Verizon locations throughout the 2000s, and eventually bought a business and grew it with a couple of partners and sold it in 2012. And just about that time, I think, I had pretty recently started at Sports Engine, and Andrew and I actually were introduced to each other by our wives. They had known each other in high school and then reconnected after college and got us together for a barbecue. And that particular day, I had taken a bunch of money out of our bank account to make our business payroll. And so there's a little tension at home. And as Andrew shows up, I'm just meeting him. I hand him a beer and sort of usher him out onto the deck and say, hey, just if you're sensing any tension or anything like that, here's why. And his face lit up and he's like, I know all about that. I own a business, and we're managing lines of credit and, financial instruments and stuff like that to try to keep the business humming. I completely get it. And we, as we were talking, started connecting on, mutual love for playing, video games in our spare time, as we're both parents and have a bunch of kids. So it was kind of like, couldn't do the happy hour thing, needed to jump on and play vids. And a couple of days later, like whatever game that he was playing shows up on my doorstep. And then I started playing with Andrew and his team of people. And for a number of years there, that's how we built and formed our relationship, was playing vids at night, talking about business.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So you kind of breezed over. What was the business that you bought and then ultimately sold that was up and down, or it sounds like?
Yeah. So the Verizon stores that we grew originally were for another owner, and, he wound up selling that business. And I had a couple of partners that, had a grouping of stores that we, closed some, grew some, ultimately got out of that business into 2012. And it was underneath, it was a Verizon Wireless premium retailer brand. So it was in that program. And yeah, it was a good experience, but you could definitely see the writing on the wall within the wireless space. It was time it was rapid consolidation, and you either needed to ante up and go out and get a ton more capital, or, let somebody else, run it from there on out.
Yeah. Eat or be eaten, it sounds like.
Yeah. It was just, after all that time, the cost of goods sold had tripled when iPhones were introduced. So if the commissions didn't go up, or the residuals didn't go up that were attached to it, you could see it was going to be, just bad math. So it was a good time to move on. And I was fortunate enough to jump on at Sports Engine early on and participate in that. It was just a great front row seat. Felt like it almost felt, the education of it was so valuable that, I would have paid to do that, to be there to consume that, as opposed to just being paid to be there, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So give a window into we've talked a little bit about the Sports Engine rise on the podcast, not with, haven't had Justin Koffenberg on, though he's on my wish list, but tangentially through, board members and investors. So what period of time were you there at Sports Engine?
From early 13 through 16, or actually 17. So which would have been, the acquisition was in mid 2016.
Okay. So you were there through that, and just for the sense of, I don't know, some level of scale, and then let's get back to the current story. How many people there when you started, and how many people at Sports Engine when you left?
Oh, well, I would assume around 100, I think. It's at the time that I started, and then several hundred thereafter, because they acquired other businesses. And it was just a fantastic experience. Truly very, very grateful to Justin and Carson and Greg for what they put together over there. And it was just, nothing short of incredible. In fact, I remembered going through the initial training and thinking, man, every single organization should have something like this. It was just so well put together. And when, one of the sections was when Koff came in and did an overview on the youth sport technology ecosystem. And he just walks up to the board with a whiteboard marker or whatever, and just starts going nuts, drawing the thing out. And I would have ripped the sleeve off and taken the tattoo at that moment. I would have branded myself. It was so refreshing. That was really my first tech experience, and watching just the level of understanding and the way that he laid out the vision for the business was just exciting to be part of. And I just am very, very grateful for that experience. And I feel like in a lot of ways it's helped us, have a discipline around growth and scale from the very beginning. I mean, we just started, recreating a lot of those processes and trying to get to a similar approach early on, because you knew what the discipline or alignment needed to look like.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was incredible.
Cool. Sounds like an amazing experience. So you guys have been friends at this point for several years, bonding over beer and barbecue and video games, which is, a very good way to do it. You get the idea. So you're already running a business. You're actually executing what becomes the dispatch vision for a couple of customers. How did you decide, or when did you decide that should be your focus, not the parts delivery? And how did that work with your existing partner and then bringing Ryan into the fold? Talk me through that.
Yeah, it's great. It's actually a funny story. So we were scaling this job site program pretty rapidly, and gobbling up market share. It was going really well. But it had, heard a lot of pain points of, like, we'd have customers calling in mad because they didn't know where their stuff was. And it was always a reflection of us, even if we weren't the ones delivering it, we were outsourcing it. And I heard a lot of that pain, quite a bit. And then one day my wife was 8 months pregnant, and she was having a rough day. So I decided to courier her out some donuts. Like, it happened to be National Donut Day. And so I bought a bunch for the team, and I'm like, I'm going to send her a box of donuts and make her day. Right. So I used our in-house, like, the courier we use for our customers, and I sent it out, and I lived like 20 minutes away from the office at the time. And so, an hour goes by, I'm like, nothing. I'm like, man, I thought this would be a big deal. So I call her, testing the water, no donuts, clearly no donuts. And then, like, a half an hour, 45 minutes later, I call again, still nothing. I couldn't believe it. So about 2.5 hours later, she calls me, and all excited, thank you up and down, like, made my day, got these donuts. And I'm like, oh my God, it took 2.5 hours. Like, I paid for the fastest service possible, which is like a 1 hour. And, like, this is what my customers see. I had no clue where stuff was. And then I'm pulling up my Uber and Lyft app and going, this is ridiculous. There's so much technology that fixes, like, this problem. And so, started thinking about the idea of, why couldn't we build this for, like, the enterprise B2B space? And we do hundreds of deliveries, right? So the volumes are so much higher, and you have a labor cost, opportunity cost problem, right? It's way more compelling than, paying for a box of donuts, right? When you have a skilled laborer who's, getting paid, $50 an hour, and you have an opportunity cost, which is usually the bigger thing, where they could be invoicing, a $5,000 job, and they're waiting on a $50 part, right? So, and just leaving the job, securing the job, going to the supplier, getting product, going back out. I mean, the math is terrible. Half of it is just getting visibility and knowing where your stuff is, so you can manage your labor and your day. And so, I started toying around with this idea, and then talked to my two partners about it. And the thought was to build this to help scale our business, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't to go build something new. It was just, it was originally like, hey, let's build this because this is a major pain point for us. Like, this is really hard to manage. Why don't we go directly to all these independent drivers and manage this with software? We can pay them directly, save some margin, and then our customers would have a way better experience. And so we started building that, like, in June of 2016. And meanwhile, Ryan and I were playing video games and talking online about this concept at the time. He's doing all the high growth stuff at Sport Engine. So he's giving me a lot of good, insight there on the software space. And, we're going back and forth. And then we got more serious about, I bet this could be a huge standalone business. And then it was December of 2016, we turned this thing on to see how it would work. And the customer base just evangelized it. It was like overnight, I had every competing, like, supplier in town were asking about it. They didn't know, that it was something we originally built in-house. It wasn't a standalone business at the time. And so it was, really clear, huge pull just from, like, the market. And so I told Ryan, like, hey, I'm going to step down and this is going to be a separate company. We're going to grow the snot out of this, and you're coming with. And so, nice. And he's like, if you actually do that, because we had a pretty good business, that we had grown quite a bit at the time. He's like, if you do that, I'll come, because obviously he was stepping away from Sport Engine. And so, and I really needed someone to partner with me on the high growth, like, sales side, right? I mean, running and building businesses isn't new. We've done that, a number of times in different brick and mortar businesses, but tech's very different. And, he had been through, like, all the iterations that Sport Engine did on, the inside outside sales model and, like, pivoting different sales strategies. And it was just made a ton of sense. It's just like,
yeah, sounds
let's
like
not, like, reinvent
fit.
this. Like, yeah, just take everything you learn, let's put it into play, like, right away. And
so did your did your existing partners, are they involved in Dispatch at all, or you?
They're investors. So we actually self-funded. So when we decided to run this as a company, we formed the entity, and we all, the three of us, equally self-funded early on to get it going. So they're kind of like investors. So
I'm curious how you figured out the tech part, because it's not trivial to basically build Uber for parts delivery, and Ryan's got experience in tech, but he's more of a biz dev guy at Sports Engine, it sounds like, and you clearly have an entrepreneurial spirit, Andrew, and have run businesses, but running a parts business for the HVAC industry sounds like you probably didn't have a CTO in-house. So how did you get that early prototype functioning, and then what did it look like in the early days of the tech?
Yeah, so helpful that we brought on an earlier investor after we started getting the tech going, who had built a medical tech company. So he was a good advisor on that, had built it up and sold that for a great exit. And he's a family friend, so had him involved. But we ended up outsourcing that development, and went and looked at a lot of different shops and decided to go with the nerdery. I mean, they were probably 3 times as expensive as some of the options we had, but we really felt, A, they were a stone's throw from our business. I could walk there. And then, B, we really wanted a US-based company where we could sit face to face and work through it. And I'm so thankful we did, because we were really hyper-focused on the use case and the user, right? So all those initial meetings was really trying to convey the problem and what we were trying to solve and the use case. And I think that would have been so hard to build a strong MVP without someone here locally, because there's just times, like even sitting face to face, come back and they didn't get it. So we had to reiterate and re-explain it. And which is expected, right? But it's not their domain experience, isn't parts distribution. And so but because of that, we really were able to get a strong MVP, like a workable MVP that made a lot of sense. Like, again, built for enterprise. We built it initially for an enterprise space, right? So from day one, we had a really strong product market fit. And then as Ryan and I continued to build this and build a team in house, we've had a lot more iterations and a ton of additions onto that MVP, and much more of a holistic product now. But that's how we got it off the ground.
And we were pretty so we would have never thought to do this without generating revenue from day one, right? So what we built all the way out to the customer. And while some of our experiences don't necessarily speak to some of these areas of either passion or strength necessarily, for Andrew and I, we're deeply involved in the product. We not only are we, obviously we in the very beginning, we took all the deliveries. We did hundreds of them. You were
literally driving?
Yes. One of our favorite stories is actually, so we just hit this 3-year mark for a couple of our key employees, our first couple of employees. And I vividly still remember the day they walked in. Andrew and I were sitting in our offices. They walk in. We didn't have a training curriculum. Obviously, it was too early for that. And the network was on fire. We were behind. We were in the car up until that point in the morning. We got out. They come in. Andrew goes, well, what do we do now? And I'm taking the keys for one of our vehicle and throwing the keys in the air. And I still can picture this. They catch it. I go, you've already seen the app. Start doing deliveries. And he goes, well, what? They don't have any training. And I go, if they can't figure out how to use this thing, they shouldn't be here, right? Because the app was pretty straightforward. But we in the beginning, we're eating our own dog food, both on the customer side and the driver side. So we have always been really, really into our own product, and are driving the direction of it forward. Even now, this is a big part of how we spend our time, is making sure that the software experience, that this is the most reliable platform that somebody can count on to get something somewhere on behalf of one of their customers. Most often, this is the difference between saying yes or no to a sale. And so we're in this unique place where we can really enable a strong partnership between our customer and their customer. And yeah, it doesn't work unless the product is well built and actually solves the problem.
I'll just say just to Ryan's earlier point, I'm like really focused on, on revenue and like early adoption. We were selling this on staging. So the notary built it, had this MVP going, and they're like, you can't be putting jobs on here. It was kind of like, no one does this. We're like, why do you spend all this money to build software if you're not going to drive revenue? So we're out selling this thing on the staging server and like backdooring, managing the whole thing as they were building it, just trying to, prove out revenue and help pay bills. So it was a crazy early time.
It was like 3,000 transactions at the time that conversation had happened. We'd already successfully delivered 3,000 times. And they're like, you can't sell this. We're like, no, not only are we selling it, we're using it daily. And we have no intention of slowing down.
And is it priced by delivery? Like give me a quick view of the revenue.
Customers hit our website, and pricing is a function of mileage, lead time or urgency level, and then vehicle type. And so there's a price sheet that populates the app. If you wanna hit it while you're multitasking on the podcast, it's dispatchit.com. There's a price or order estimator right on the homepage. And
it could be as small as a car or as large as a cargo van, it looks like, right? And so all that factors in and urgency, but it's not, based on what I've seen, you don't care what the thing is. You just care size, urgency. What if it's something that weighs 1,000 pounds? Is that?
No, we will deliver thousands of pounds of tile up a skyscraper in the middle of downtown Chicago. Like that's what people use us for. It's job site delivery. And oftentimes, it's not the sexiest of items, but these are the things that keep our infrastructure and the economy moving forward. Right now, we are, a great example would be like Gerton's. We'll say, really significant e-commerce business that was surprising. And for us, like, we were positioned to be able to help them get that product where it needed to go. Into the pandemic now, where they no longer have the ability for folks to come out and shop. They've moved their entire catalog online and then doubled and subsequently tripled their delivery business, as that's the only means that they can get it done right now. So been a really cool blueprint or sort of customer story to point to as others are trying to figure out how to dig out in this era of COVID-19.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit through the rapid scaling you've been doing. You mentioned it was about 3 years ago you hired these first employees, and so early days it was just the two of you. I think you said December 2016 was kind of the formal launch. When did you get outside of the Twin Cities market? How did you think about that, scaling to other cities? And like, what were the big inflection points in the business in terms of growth?
Yeah, so we were, I'd say the first quarter of 2017, we were just scrambling to meet demand. I mean, like Ryan mentioned, we were driving nonstop, on the phone with accountants, on attorneys, like trying to get all the business stuff done, trying to, figure out hiring plans, like all while, in the car doing deliveries. It was a lot of hold on, let me drop this off, and then resuming the phone call.
So quick pause there. So, did you ever, you mentioned you're both married. Did you ever get some sideways looks from your wives and be like, so basically you're driving around all day. This is your job now.
No, I'll give you some dysfunction. Raquel early on says, well, what's the office like? Right. Because she, in her mind, has seen Sports Engine, and it's this most beautiful, amazing office space. I mean, they had beer on tap. They had a website to tell you what beer was on tap. You didn't even have to walk the 100 steps. You could just look at the website to see if it was worth the 100 steps, right?
Yeah.
So my wife says, what's the office like? And I said, the office is the inside of the Chevy Equinox. And if we want beer, we've got to go pick it up like any regular person from a store in the form of like a 12 pack, and then it was just night and day different from the original, like that original experience. We were in a multi-tenant office space that was in essentially like a forgotten area of a building that Andrew and his other partners owned. And the rent was, it was great. It was free. It was just, quite a bit different, I think, than what Raquel had been used to, having seen a couple of or been to the Sports Engine office a couple of times.
Okay, let's take a quick break to pay some bills. We're here talking to Patrick Meenan from Arthur Ventures. They're generous enough to sponsor the podcast. Arthur's a little bit different than your typical VC. How do you explain it to people, into your strategy of investing in the companies into which you invest?
Sure. I think that the strategy is probably best illustrated by some of the data that we have within the portfolio. So in our last portfolio, our 2017 portfolio, the average company had about $2.5 million in revenue. So they were materially post-traction companies. So they're not seed-ish companies or anything like that. That company was hyper capital efficient. So that business on average had raised less than $300K of outside funding. Usually at zero. Every once in a while, they may have raised $1 or $2 million or something.
So you might have been the first money in.
We love to be, almost always.
Yeah.
Almost always.
Okay.
But at the same time, they're still high growth. Okay, so they're growing about 150% a year on average. And so when you look at those three things, it's basically more traction than kind of traditional seed series ABCs, but still less from like really large growth equity funds. Much more capital efficient, but still capturing a lot of growth. So when you think about our strategy being a little bit different, I would say it's more of that kind of post-traction, bootstrapped entrepreneur. Of that focus of what we try to do is a little bit different from what you might see, especially within the local ecosystem.
Well, Patrick, really appreciate you being a sponsor of the podcast and everything that Arthur Ventures does for the local tech community. So thank you again for being here to speak with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for doing this.
How about you, Andrew? You had a successful business. It was, sounded like becoming more successful from this courier idea. Was there any hesitation to go all in on this thing, or were there points where you wondered if that was the right decision?
Yeah, a lot of it's like your personal, like, what is this the right move? Leaving a really high growth, still a high growth business. We were still over 20% growth a year. We're really doing well there, and this was such a novel thing, and such a shoot the moon type of business that it was very, very different. I think also, being self-employed, you're used to working a lot of hours and used to like the chaos, but just it's that times 10 almost, at Dispatch, because it was just, there was no processes, nothing, right? So you're having to do all of that after a crazy, like long day. You're still then having to go back at night and build that from scratch. And yeah, you get used to having like a team to help delegate and do a lot of that. And then, our team was us. We started hiring in March of 2017, I believe, or April. Hired about 6 people kind of at April, May. And again, we were self-funding at the time. So we only had one market, Minneapolis. And it wasn't until, I believe, later that summer, fall, we had a couple engineers reach out to us that they're actually at the nerdery, and they reached out to us asking if we were going to hire. And we're like, oh man, it'd be so great to do that. We just don't have enough money. And that's when we're like, we got to raise money. Like we can't grow this fast. Felt like we were constantly behind, right? Not having enough people, too much demand. And that's when we're like, we got to venture capital this thing. We got to raise money and put more fuel on this.
Yeah. But you'd already figured out product market fit. You had customers that loved it. So how did that first fundraising go? And if it's public, like, what'd you raise? Who'd you raise from?
Yeah. So I'll give a lot of credit to Casey Allen, actually. Ryan set up a meeting with him. We were chatting with him about just like, I had no network in the fundraising side. Ryan had a little bit more than I did. And there was a mention of, hey, why don't you just talk to your customers? Like, they're paying for this. They're all business owners. They're all entrepreneurs.
Good advice.
So we actually raised like over we raised over $1 million from our customer base right away. And then we filled the rest out with, traditional venture capital. But we did a seed round. It was a $2 million seed round. And, we didn't know where to begin as far as like the venture community. And so we were trying to tap into anything we could locally as far as networking. And then meanwhile, we're, setting appointments with our customers, pitching this idea and getting buy-in there. And that, what's great is they're already spending money, right? So it's a natural, it's like, you're already using us. You want to own a little bit of this?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a trip in May of 17. We went out to Cincinnati. So we had, another Johnstone owner that, was open to this concept, was be like, how, what would it cost for you to, or take for you to come to, our market in Cincinnati? We have the same business problem. So we ask, well, how much of a check can you write? We go out there. We have a great couple day visit with them. And it's like, wow, somebody else really likes this. We could see a path to a future market. We were all excited, hype. We jump on the plane. That's another story. Nearly went down in a plane crash, and get back home, and we're talking about this and realize like, oh, we haven't built our technology in a way that can even allow us to take orders in other areas of the country. Because at that time, like, it was just built for Minnesota. We didn't think like, oh, we're going to have to make sure driver in Cincinnati or North Carolina or whatever else can't see these orders. And that was like
the nerdery. That seems like they should have picked that out.
Well,
you don't build software for one city. That's insane.
To be fair, we, I think this was, more positioned originally like, okay, let's solve this one business problem. Now we had such traction and wanted to grow with it. They're like, oh yeah, probably should build, that concept into the tech. And ultimately it took us probably about 6 months to get to the point where we had enough of that capital and to think about launching an additional market. And we, at that time, I think we decided on another 3 in, November, December, and January. We did Cincinnati, Kansas City, and then somebody that I knew in my network in the past was like, hey, this is a cool concept. I'd be willing to, relocate to, try another market. And so that was the third one, was Dallas. And so we had, I think that first year we did 1, and then the second year we did another 5. So it was Cincy, Casey, Dallas, and then we added Orlando and Chicago. And
so jumping to the current chapter of the story, I'm looking at your website. It looks like about 30 markets.
Yeah. So, as it pertains to those second grouping of 5, we raised a seed round there, like a seed extension round that was like shade over 2 million in 18, the fall of 18.
Mm-hmm.
And that powered, essentially that next grouping of 6 or 5. And then we went out and did another raise to do 24 last year.
So what does it look like to launch a new city, Ryan? Like, do you drop a dispatch employee there? I assume you're going to new cities because you have customers. How do you figure out drivers, how many to hire, what the volume? Like, I imagine after doing it 30 times, you've got things pretty dialed in. But like, what was it like to launch that first one, and then what does it look like now?
Yeah, so we had, originally our model, so going back to like this is a 1099 marketplace setup, right? But originally we thought the way to smooth this, because we need to launch, essentially recreate a brand new network every time we do this in a new city. The original strategy was to put a couple of cargo van assets and put employees in those cargo vans to make sure that we had a first layer that could say yes to businesses who are placing these deliveries with us. And we realized over time that we could never really, maximize the, that labor. Like it was just, a really, really significant cash drain on the business. So we moved away from that model, and truly embrace the software-based play without having, our own physical assets and employees every time we launched a market. So, and we did that, actually, toward the tail end of last year and into the first quarter of this year, making the transition away from those physical assets. And it's ironic in some ways that, as Andrew mentioned, all of our customers have fleets of vehicles like that. And here we are living with the exact same problem our customers were. And it's like the largest case study for us to realize like, hey, no matter how much you try to maximize that fleet, you just can't do it. And we, no one's better equipped to tell that story than us, because we tried it. We tried it at scale, and it just didn't work. So now, when we launch markets, we do so where we're managing to a driver pipeline on one side and a customer pipeline on the other. And, in hindsight, that, strategic business move, it looks good now in, given the considerations of the pandemic, et cetera. And what we do is then pre-sell for about 6 to 8 weeks. It's, somewhat, it's nice because we work with regional and national suppliers who also have businesses in the cities where we're going to launch. So we're socially selling with other leaders in their business, while we have a driver engagement team that works to build out a pipeline on the other side. And then we sort of, try to have both of those hit at the same time. And then we supplement it with driver guarantees to make sure that we have available supply to handle the need that, is coming in that city.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we did 24 last year, and that was just, we were bursting at the seams. It was a lot of work. And the team did an incredible job. There's probably not enough time to go into detail, like just how much work that all was to grow, add those markets. The team, I think we had, Andrew, what was it? It was like almost 500 gross hires through 3 quarters last year. It was insane. Yeah. Between, FTEs and part-time employees, like, can't say enough about Natalie Johnson and our HR team. They just did an incredible job, even optimizing for us to be able to do that.
That's some crazy growth. What is the mix between employees and contract drivers?
Well, there are thousands of contractor drivers around the country driving for us now. And now the employee count looks differently, that we don't have the vehicles in-house. And remember what our most recent count is?
We had about 150 part-time workers. So Ryan, as Ryan mentioned, we'd always launch with 2 vans and 4 part-time drivers in a market. And then that was kind of the base, as we'd add independents on top of that. So we'd have hundreds of independent drivers in those new markets with just 2 of our own vehicles. But you multiply that across all those markets, right? And it's 4 people in every city. Ends up being quite a bit of part-time. I think we had around 90 vans at one point. And so we've since, I think in hindsight, that's still probably one of the best ways for us to be able to blitz that many markets open. And now we've gained such a strong, enterprise and, top downs, sales reputation, where we can go in, Ryan and that team will work directly with the senior leaders of these large organizations when we roll out new markets. So it's not as much of a hand-to-hand combat in the market, walking into a local branch, much more of a strategic rollout. So that also helps make it a lot easier to do the pre-selling on both sides and not needing to seed the market with any kind of, any of our own assets.
Yeah, because I assume in your core business, which is still like construction and job site, right? It's correct, you'll deliver anything, but you're still servicing that same core customer.
Yeah. Yeah, and we see a lot of the businesses that we are working with, they're concerned about the Amazons of the world, right? And Amazon's 100% e-commerce based, couple of distribution centers, all supply chain to get products out where they need to go. So there's this unique pressure that exists where you have a typical service worker, call it a plumber, who's out on job sites and is also a consumer, and they can get their toilet paper tracked to their door via Amazon, but they can also spend millions of dollars in buying, equipment and product to take care of their customer base, and they have no idea where it is. Mm-hmm. So when Amazon came out with Prime for Business in 2015 and did $1 billion in year 1 revenue, it really started to rattle the cage of, traditional brick and mortar distributors. And I think there's this sort of looming awareness that they have to, become e-com ready, that they have to be able to take care of the contractor in the same way that an Amazon would. And so you've seen more of a willingness to adopt, last mile practices, because at the end of the day, if you don't have the ability to get the product where it needs to go, it doesn't matter if you procure it in an app, you still need it. And if you have to coordinate freight, it's just easier to pick up the phone and call like you would have in the past. And so our customers are starting to become, more and more aware. And I think this COVID-19 deal is made it even more apparent. They had, many of our customers had a plan to get to this in the next few years. And now suddenly this has become, one of the biggest problems that they're facing, as their customers are less willing to go into retail environments if they don't have to. I mean, we know across several 100,000 deliveries, the average one-way delivery is 55 minutes. So if our customer's leaving a job site to go pick up their product, they're going to spend an hour in the car. Then they're going to spend another hour coming back. In our situation, they could call their supplier who's dispatch enabled, place the order, and we've got somebody coming to them oftentimes before they've even secured the job site to leave. And so the net of it is, every time somebody does a dispatch delivery, we're handing them back one revenue generating hour. And that's a huge win. They're going to choose to do business with suppliers that are going to help them get more work done. So we've seen a lot of the businesses start to, take a look at more of a modern playbook to make sure that they stay relevant in the age of Amazon, as opposed to, ultimately having a large business provide more convenience or options to your customer and see them go away.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing the progress you have made in less than 4 years, like 3.5 basically, as of recording in May of 2020. Does it feel like you've reached a peak, or does it still feel like you're running uphill most days, Andrew?
Oh, you're running uphill. I mean, This is I think a lot of people are also just unaware how massive this space is. I mean, we're just scratching the surface. We'll be in over 50 markets by the end of this year. So we're going to continue that expansion, but then there's a lot of product offerings that we're building out too.
Is there a point at which like a market is like too small to matter, or is that not the way to think about it in this space?
Yeah, no, I think there is. Even take a Duluth, right? Duluth, Minnesota. It's not a massive market, but it's a market where there's still, our customer base is still up there. And you got to think, they're not just serving Duluth, they're serving Grand Rapids, and they're serving Virginia, and they're because there's not a supplier in Grand Rapids. So you're getting a lot of longer distance stuff. So it's still a labor time problem, right? So someone in Grand Rapids still has to go to Duluth or get a delivery from Duluth to Grand Rapids to get the product. So while the cities aren't as big, you have still, longer distances to go, and it's still spread out. So you're serving a lot more than just that small city, unlike a, food delivery or something that's like more hyper local.
Mm-hmm. Is there a reason that Toronto is not on your list, or maybe it is for the next 50? Like, is there international expansion in the plans?
Yeah, I think the first country we're going to go to will probably be California, because it's unique enough that there's a lot of it's a massive market. We're not there yet, so I think if we're gonna the next place we go outside of just, I'd say that the rest of the U.S. will be California before we go somewhere truly international. But I mean, Canada's on our radar. We have a lot of pull to the UK. We have a lot of customer overlap over there too. So I think first and foremost, we want to stay really focused on building a really robust network, across the country first. Yeah. For Ryan and I, it's always been about execution and focus. There's a lot of squirrels to chase, and I think that's one of the reasons we're really focused on industrial distribution at the moment. Our network can handle anything. I mean, it's a network of drivers, and they can do a lot of varying type of work because we have larger asset classes. So that network's established. So if we want to add, medical, we want to add other verticals, legal or B2C, like we can absolutely add that to the driver network. But we're really focused on first, market penetration in that like core segment, that core industrial distribution segment.
Yeah, it might be helpful to like our customers, like we live in what I would call like last 20% of their spend regarding like, last mile, right? Like the first 80% bucket, I think is, devoted mostly to their in-house fleet of assets and employees, et cetera, with little tech of any kind powering those efforts. And so we've long believed that if you're going to solve this problem for the large regional or national distributor, and part of what makes this so compelling for them is couriers are asset based and very geographically fragmented. The top 3 in Minneapolis are not the top 3 in Kansas City or Chicago or anywhere else. So if you're, someone like some of our largest customers, they may have several hundred, if not close to 1,000 courier vendors that they're working with across the country. So for us, we can solve this problem in the majority of the cities. It makes it more compelling to work with us. And we've, long believed that we needed to get to the top 80 to 100 MSAs. And that our traditional model, because it's really, really low cost now that we don't have these additional vehicles, there's nothing that would stop us from going to a medium-sized city or even a smaller one if there was customer demand there. Mm-hmm. While we're doing that, we're also, starting to help our customers solve the larger aspect of their problem, which is the 80% with their own in-house vehicles, by building out an integrated tech experience that allows their customers to know exactly what's going on with deliveries, whether we're fulfilling it with the dispatch network or our core customer is filling it with their in-house assets. And so that's sort of our next, big splash from a software standpoint, is taking on that really, really, big problem that they're currently solving with middleware, a transportation management system, or even a telematics solution. Mm-hmm. So for us, it's much more relevant to know what's going on at the parcel level for their customer. At the end of the day, that's all they care about. Like, help me run a better business, help me have an optimized workday and know where things are at any given time that I'm going to need to power that service-based work.
Well, as the chief revenue officer, I think we both know selling more to your current customer base is easier than taking down a new city, right?
Yeah, and ironically, they go hand in hand in a lot of ways. Like, if I'm looking to deepen a relationship for them, and this is fun. I'm talking with, say, a Sherwin-Williams who, has had a 20-year courier relationship in Dallas, and we've upended that relationship because this is just better, faster, cheaper, more efficient, and more customer focused. And I don't feel bad about that. And so if they tell me that they want to do that in Milwaukee and Portland and everywhere else, then, great. It's pretty easy for us to spin up these networks to solve that problem as well. So we're very, very excited about what the future looks like. As Andrew mentioned, we're doing in the middle of doing another 20 markets here this year. We had to make the decision, like, we're going to slow down, or we're going to stop for this, or keep it rolling. And we had a good pipeline built up, and so we just kept launching markets. So I think we were going to do 9 this quarter, where I think as of either this week or next, we'll be through 6 of those, which is great.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing that you're growing that fast and the wheels haven't completely come off. So you talked about self-funding early on, raising, I think you said a pre-seed and then a seed round, seed extension. The terms kind of get muddy. Where are you in terms of funding all this growth, and what's the future there?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've gotten really capital efficient. Like we talked about before, we've really pivoted our model as the company's matured to take advantage of the synergies we have from the enterprise sales approach. And it's really been able to reduce just the cost to open markets, like Ryan mentioned, to be de minimis. It's pretty inexpensive to take the existing infrastructure we have and launch new markets. And so because of that, we need less money. We did actually secure a rather large Series B round. We were going to announce it would have been closed by now. It was a $21 million capital round that we had term sheets signed, and it got put on pause when the pandemic hit. So we were in the middle of diligence, and that whole thing really made us take a step back and look at, do we even need that much capital? Because we really don't. It's great to have bragging rights and say, hey, look all this money we have sitting in the bank account, but it doesn't really, it's not necessarily needed to get the same kind of growth that we can do on this new model. And so that was put on pause. We just decided to go back to our additional investors and see if anybody was interested in doing something internally, and everybody raised their hand. So we did do a smaller insider round that'll close in a couple of weeks. That'll give us enough fuel to just keep growing. And what's great is it's great when you have investors that like have the vision and get it, because it wasn't a beat dispatch up because it's a pandemic. It was hey, what a great opportunity this is to continue to fuel the growth of the company. Ryan mentioned this a little bit, but we're seeing all the timeline of final mile like being accelerated with a lot of these businesses because of COVID. I think we've always anticipated a higher level of adoption of this into a recession, believe it or not. So we've been really bullish on how dispatch would do in a recessionary period. That typically is like a dimmer switch though, right? Like you kind of feel yourself in a recession. It's a slower, eventually you're like, oh, I guess we're in one, and
this was a blackout.
This was like a total kick in the pants. Yeah. And so this just was a huge catalyst for, just really accelerating how people are looking at this. And so coming out of this, we did see a dip as certain industries did shut down. Like we do a lot in print. In print, sells to dental offices and restaurants, and they do a lot of that. So, we've seen verticals like that slow down. We've seen others accelerate, like plumbing. And so we've seen a little bit of a dip and spike back up in our business. And so now it's how do we position ourselves to take advantage of everybody's focusing on this coming out of the pandemic, right? So it was great that we had such a strong investor base that was willing to do a round internally.
That's really good. Well, it's been exciting to follow your guys' story. Quick sidebar. I don't know if you remember this. You mentioned Casey Allen, who was guest number 1 or episode 1 of the podcast. So we'll link to that in the show notes. At Enterprise Rising, I got to hear you guys pitch a sort of mega angel. I won't mention his name because if he is now an investor, do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, he's not, but yeah.
He's not. Okay, so we won't mention him. But Enterprise Rising, I met the guy and he's like, oh, we're going to hear some pitches. Why don't you come with me? And I was new to town, hadn't heard of Dispatch. And within 30 seconds, I think he was offering you money. And this guy probably hears 500 pitches a year. And it just clicked. And you're both good salespeople, but it was just like you had the numbers, you had the stats, and you could tell like the market was pulling you towards them based on what you were saying. And so I just wanted to let you, that was when I started following Dispatch, and it's been exciting to, check the website every once in a while, see how many cities are up there. It's pretty amazing. And I think the amazingness will just get better. So it's been a pleasure to have you both on the podcast, and I hope we can do it again. Maybe post IPO. We'll just figure that out down the road. But so we like to close with 2 questions for everybody, and we'll go Andrew first on this one. Who's somebody in Minnesota tech that our listeners should know about?
Well, I gotta say Casey again. I mean, if you don't know about Enterprise Rising, that's actually like the first event that we did. We actually, Ryan and I called 2 of our independent contractor drivers, these two ladies, and we said, can we just pay you cash to monitor the phone? We have this phone line. No one ever calls it, but we'll pay you so we can go to this event. And so they actually like managed the phones one day so we could go to Casey's Enterprise Rising event. That was the first one we went to, and I've been to every one since. It's just a fantastic, he does a great job. And Casey's such a value first guy. He never asks for anything in return. I mean, he's just great asset to the community. So he's been super helpful to both Ryan and I as we've been getting this thing going.
Awesome. Ryan, what about you?
Yeah, you stole mine, Andrew. Like I vividly remember that, first Enterprise Rising and hearing Christian Anderson say, if you have $1 of revenue, you have a real business. And Andrew and I looked at each other and went, whoa, we have a real business. This was the first day that we were out of the car and not doing deliveries. So Casey's been, as Andrew said, fantastically, value first. And I think, even talking with him in the last couple of days, I picked up the phone, obviously with all the uncertainty, and I hope he doesn't mind my saying this, but, I told him like, hey, we need this thing, and we need this, not necessarily in person. The content is more important than the medium that it's being delivered in. we need this now more than ever. So keep
this thing meaning Enterprise Rising. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I know so we're taping in May. It's usually, I think it was scheduled for June. He kicked it to September, and I do know Casey struggled. By the time this is released, hopefully we know that answer. But no, I think that's good of you to push it. I do think it's a valuable event for a lot of people and can absolutely be so virtually. All right, last question outside of business. Ryan, you first this time. What's something you love about Minnesota?
Well, Minnesota's great. We have, we're very, very fortunate here. Like, we have an incredible place to raise families. This is incredible community that we have here. Our tech community is I don't know if people realize this, but it's a gem. Like, I've traveled around as part of opening these markets. I've been really intentional about participating in other tech communities when I'm in those cities, whether it be startup weekends elsewhere or, different support organizations. And I don't know if we realize just how good we have it. We have, not just a wonderful place to live, but also there's a very supportive group helping people figure this sort of thing out. So I'm absolutely love, where we live. I love, how supportive our community is, and there's no better place to, in my mind, to operate and grow a startup.
Cool. What about you, Andrew?
Yeah, the people. I mean, Minnesota just has a great community, like Ryan mentioned, but we just have fantastic people, and both of us have families, so raising a family here, it's just a great place to raise a family and build a business. It's a good ecosystem, and I think it'd be hard to ever move away. I mean, someday the cold can get to you, but the people make up for it.
Yeah. Very nice. All right. So if people want to drive for you, buy your services, give you money, what's the best way to connect with Ryan, Andrew, and Dispatch?
Check out our website. It's dispatchit.com. Great place to figure out what things cost if you want to move things around town and outfit your supply chain efforts. And then if you're looking to have, income, one of the, great things that anybody can do is, quickly sign up to drive on our website. It's a all digital process, which is awesome. It's pretty easy to get certified. And then once you get on the road, we've taken steps to make sure that people can still safely deliver in this era. So if you're looking to supplement income, it's a great time to sign up to drive and do that at our website.
Cool. If they want to just follow the story of Andrew and Ryan and the company itself, Twitter, LinkedIn, what's your medium of choice?
We're active on all of them. I would say professionally, I spend more time on LinkedIn and Twitter than others, but our team is monitoring both our Facebook channels, LinkedIn. We haven't done anything on TikTok yet, but Andrew's been practicing with his kid to try to get dance ready. So stay tuned for more on that.
That's right.
All right. Well, again, thank you both for being on the podcast. It was really a pleasure. Sorry we couldn't do it in studio, but this is the life we're living right now. So excited to give you guys a high five in person when we can get back out into the world.
Yeah, us too. Thank you.
Sounds great.
Keep up the great work. See you guys.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for listening to the tech.mn podcast. If you like what you just heard, we'll hope you'll share the love by giving us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find us at tech.mn or on Twitter at tech.dotmn.